One of the most fundamental principles of PvP in Souls game is understanding the peer-to-peer connection and the latency between you and your opponent. It's incredibly frustrating to watch your opponent get hit by your attack only for them to roll and take no damage. It makes for a very frustrating experience and one of the many reasons why so many people refrain from the PvP scene. There's two categories of lag, latency and packet loss. Packet loss is when a confirmed hit takes increased time to process on the received end. This can really disrupt the flow of a fight. Attack priority can change if the opponent doesn't take the damage appropriately. You may even see them die well after they've killed you. For this, there really isn't much of a solution other than to play very passively and take as little damage yourself as possible in hopes to outlast them. With latency, however, there is a few checkboxes that need to be marked off. First, the aggressor has to see their hitbox cross the body of their opponent, and the opponent needs to see the attack animation complete on their end. If the receiver is in active iframes when the prior conditions are met, they will receive a phantom hit, which deals no damage but applies status. But if the receiver is not in active iframes, then they take damage, even if it appears on their screen that they're well outside the hitbox. Now latency, unlike packet loss, isn't biased, and therefore whoever takes priority is in favor. But before we start exploiting latency, you have to be able to measure it first. When you first engage with your opponent, you can check for lag with a throwing knife. If there's a delay between when the dagger passes through the opponent and when the damage is taken, you're dealing with some latency. If the dagger passes through, no phantom hit occurs, and a damage take occurs much later, then there's packet loss. Situation 1. The opponent has attack priority and takes the first move. Roll the attack. If you're within range of the attack on your screen, but a phantom hit occurs, then you didn't initiate the roll on the opponent's screen yet, which means that you're in a disadvantaged state, and they will have attack priority. The time between when you initiate the roll and when the phantom hit occurs is roughly the amount of latency that you have. Situation 2. The opponent has attack priority and takes the first move. You're clearly outside of the hitbox on your screen, you roll, but you still receive a phantom hit. The time it took for your opponent's attack to land where you were to where you are now is roughly the amount of latency that you have, and it's probably very bad. Now keep in mind, if you're running from your opponent and they're chasing you, you can estimate that they're likely a little closer to you and you're likely a little further behind on their screen. So even though you may feel like there's a mile between each other, there probably isn't, even on good latency. Situation 3. You take attack priority. The hit crosses the opponent's hitbox, and they subsequently roll afterwards. The time between your attack crossing the hitbox and the phantom hit is your latency. Finally, situation 4. You take attack priority. The hit crosses the hitbox on the opponent, they stand there and begin to wail on you. You take damage before they do. They have packet loss, and you should invest in McDonald's to get your opponent more reliable Wi-Fi. Once you understand your connection, there's a few ways you can take advantage of it. The easiest of which to do is use statuses. Status effects proccing on phantom hits can help you guarantee damage on an opponent where you may otherwise walk away with nothing. Rot, poison, sleep, and madness are ideal for this, but bleed and frost can really mess up your opponent's spacing and timing as well. But playing with status isn't the only solution here. Now we get into predictive versus reactive play, particularly when roll catching. With weapons under 15 startup frames, on low latency, you can reliably roll catch your opponent on reaction. Rolls have 13 active frames, 8 recovery frames. Assume that you have 100 milliseconds of latency, and you have a reaction time to the animation of 0.2 seconds. On a weapon with 12 startup frames, you can roll catch perfectly every time. Bump that latency up to 300 milliseconds, and you'll no longer be able to roll catch at your reaction speed at 30 FPS. That's probably a lot more math than anybody asked for, but the point here is to show that with high latency, you have to start predicting. You need to treat your opponent like they are literally 2 steps ahead of you, and catch them early. This makes your game turn into a lot of 50-50 scenarios. Will they mash out a hit stun, or do you go for the roll catch? If you go for the roll catch on prediction, and they mash, you lose priority. So condition your opponent to your timings, and change it up once they start to react to your pattern. From here, I'm going to leave it up to the clips to illustrate my point, do some funny editing things to provide context. Apologies in advance for the poor video quality, I'm doing my best with what I got. Now, I know how frustrating it can be to fight with poor latency to your opponent, so to make this video, I went to the laggiest place in the game where all the people using Wi-Fi and VPNs go to fight, Raya Lucaria. I subjected myself to this pain for you, to show you just how you have to play in order to get the edge in these fights. So please, like, subscribe, and let me know if my suffering was able to benefit you in any way other than to satisfy your sadistic tendencies.
Nice shot!
The Force will be with you, always.
No, 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 no! Wait, 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 wait! Wait, 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 wait!
What's wrong with you? Why do you do that?
Bad!
Now that's a lot of damage!